Hey guys! So I thought that it would be fun for me to start doing writing challenges on this channel, intermixed with like the writing advice that I give you guys. So I came up with several writing challenges. This one was based off a YouTube video I found of a piano player who writes like piano music and composes music in a certain amount of time. And the challenge is like the first time you have to do it in like 30 seconds, and then a minute or whatever, and then it moves up as you go. So like then the next one would be like 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes, and then an hour, and then 5 minutes, or 5 hours, I mean. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try that with writing. So the link to his channel is in the description below if you're interested in watching his challenges. That's where I got the idea. Again, he composes music and plays piano with it, but I thought I would do basically the same challenge just with writing. So what I decided to do was to look up fantasy writing prompts, and I found this one, literally Googled it, 61 fantasy writing prompts, and scrolled down to number 57, where I found one that I could work with. And so the way that I'm going to do it, the way that the challenge works on that other guy's channel is that he composes a different song each level. What I'm going to try to do with this particular challenge, and I may do it that way on another day, but the way that I'm going to do this challenge is I'm going to take the same fantasy prompt and rewrite it several different ways, and each way is going to give me a different time limit to rewrite or write the story. So the first one that we are going to do, we're going to start off with 30 seconds, and then we're going to do 2 minutes, and then 10 minutes. Actually, I'm going to add in 5 minutes. 10 minutes, and then I don't think we'll have enough time for an hour, but we will do 30 minutes. And I'll do this challenge different times, and add in different times or whatever. So we're going to do the first round, which is 30 seconds. So let me get a timer. So we're going to start, okay, really quick. The prompt is, you're a young royal in disguise who befriends a villager with a scarred face. The next day he's arrested for stealing something you gave to him. Saving his life will mean risking everything. So my predictions are that the faster times, like the 30 seconds, is probably going to be just ending up being a log line for the story, and then a blurb, and then a more advanced blurb, and then a summary, and then probably a short story version of it. But we'll see how this goes and how much I can write and get done in the timing. So let's begin. 3, 2, 1, go. I just realized it takes me longer than 30 seconds to pick out a character name. Oh dear me. And to pick out how to spell it, oh my gosh. So we're gonna redo it. I'm deleting this. That hurts me, but I'm deleting it. Alright, let's try this again and see if it works this time. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go. So I need to change the settings on this because I saw the countdown, but like I didn't hear an alarm go off, so I'm going to change that. Basically, this is what I had for 30 seconds. So here's the read through. Clarice kicked up dirt with her pointed shoe as she walked down the street. Up ahead was a young man whose face was badly burned on the right side, which caused his lip to permanently curl down. Why are you... And I had the idea in my head where she was going to like, why are you begging? And he kind of explains to her what happened to him. Because in short stories and flash fiction, you got to get straight to the point. You don't have time to drag anything out. So that, honestly, when you know that you're timed, there's so much pressure. So like, I'm not writing like I normally would. It's more like I'm writing under pressure. And there's a whole lot of like, I'm not taking the time to think before I write, and I'm not thinking about good vocabulary, because normally when I'm regularly writing, it's fun and I can type fast, but I still take my time. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about vocabulary and stuff, but just, not just randomly going with the first word that pops into my head all the time. Again, I'm basing it on the same prompt, but I'm starting the story over every time. So we see how the more time that I have, if my writing changes with the more time. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Ah! Dang it. Oh my gosh, that is not enough time. I was like, type. Because I knew that the timer was like starting to count down, so I was like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. It was like this increasing pressure to try to get to the part I was trying to get to in my head, which was, again, the why are you begging and him telling her the story. But this time, I noticed that with more time, so now that I had 2 minutes to write, I actually decided, okay, instead of just jumping straight into the scene, I had time, okay, let's go back a few steps, and how did she end up here and stuff like that. And I was able to really think the scene through and figure out more about what was going on in the scene. Whereas with those 30 seconds and the short time, it's like just write the first thing that pops into your head. Whereas the more time that you have, the more time you have to kind of think the scene through. So I'm interested to see what the 5 minute, 10 minute, and 30 minutes looks up. So the 2 minute one, Clarice always enjoyed her visits to the village since she didn't often get to travel outside the palace. Her shoe caught on a jagged stone sticking up on the street, but she managed to catch herself before she fell. Are you all right, Your Majesty? A man asked. The man had a kind voice. Clarice looked up and couldn't hold back a gasp. The entire right side of the man's face was badly burned, which forced half of his lip down into a snarl. His eyes, though, were a piercing shade of green, so kind and open and sad. Yes, I am. Thank you. I did not get to put the end parentheses on there, so it's going to drive me insane. I'm going to leave these exactly as I left them. I'm definitely going to have to finish this story, because the more I work with this story, the more I'm getting into this world I'm creating in my head as I write. And it really just makes me want to write the story, It's like teasing me, like, you can write, but we're going to stop you. It's like, no, let me finish. Okay. All right, so 5 minutes on the timer. And this time it actually does dingling. It does go off. So, which, by the way, I'm going to turn my internet off real quick so I don't waste any unnecessary data. All right. So again, I'm interested to see how much more thought process goes into it, because I know with this one I actually was able to use a little bit better vocabulary. I was able to go back to backspace and kind of edit a few of my sentences as I went, which is a habit I always do when I'm writing. And so it ended up being a little bit more mature than the last one. So let's go. All right, 5 minutes on the timer. 3, 2, or the timing right. 3, 2, 1, go. I actually came to a bit of a stopping point before the timer went off, because I saw I was running out of time. I feel like with the more time, I'm able to think about the scene more. And so the first one was just, let's jump in the middle of the scene. The 2 minute one allowed me to think, okay, let's go back a few steps and see what happened before this and why she's here. The 5 minute one allowed me to say, okay, we know why she's here. Let's start the scene from the beginning and let's describe it and actually write it as in a story, not like a summary, not in like an outline. Just let's write the story and see how far I can get. And so this would probably be like the flash fiction version of it, which is very short. So let's read through the 5-minute version real quick. The bright blue sky filled Clarice with joy as she sucked in a breath of fresh air. The palace was always so stifling, but today was one of the days when she visited the village. It wasn't a trip she was allowed to do very often, but sometimes the people needed to see the royals out and about, even the princess. Clarice's shoe caught on a jagged stone poking out of the cobblestone street. She yelped, but threw her hands out to catch herself. Smooth hands caught hers and helped her catch her before she fell. "Are you all right, Your Majesty?" a deep, kind voice asked. Clarice looked up and couldn't hide a gasp. The entire right side of the man's face was horribly burned, which forced his lip down into a snarl. His eyes, though, were open and kind, but also held deep sadness inside them. "Yes, I am. Thank you." The man nodded and removed his hand from hers as if he had been electrocuted. As Clarice looked at him longer, she noticed the rags on his body and the small cup filled with coppers inside. "Why are you begging, if I may ask?" The man cleared his throat but avoided looking directly into her eyes. "My face, Your Majesty. No one will hire me." "Just because you've been burned?" Clarice frowned. The man nodded and his hand traced the scars on his face. "Because they're frightened of me, Your Majesty." "You don't frighten me." Clarice smiled at him and reached out for his hands. Then she slid her diamond ring off her finger and gave it to him. "Here, to help you." So again, I noticed I was getting toward the end of the time, so I was able to stop it, and that feels more like a well-rounded story. Short one, but still well-rounded. Again, I added in things in the scene because I had more time to think about it. So like instead of catching herself like I did before, which it was more like this because there was so short amount of time I was telling, I was able to show that she started to fall, but he actually caught her, and I added that in. And then of course the more dialogue and everything else, and we finally got to the question and the main part of the dialogue. So the part that I'm dreading right now is having to rewrite all of this because I actually really like the 5-minute version. So the exciting part is going to be able to kind of do combinations of these versions to make the final version later. So let's revise the timer for 10 minutes. All right, we got 10 minutes on the timer. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. I can't figure out how to do it. Oh, no. Naming characters takes me so long, guys. I don't know what I'm doing. Right? No. Right. I hit a block, so far everything flowed pretty well for like 7 minutes, and then all of a sudden I get down to 2 minutes left, and I'm like, my mind goes blank, because if I was writing this would have been like a scene cut, sort of. So yeah, normally I tell people to like write the thing first. I think it was awkward at first because I was rewriting all of this, and normally if I'm writing I just keep going. And rewriting the earlier scene, like I kind of liked it better this way with the 5-minute one. Here I am just talking the last minute away. I really liked the 5-minute one, but like with this one I just added in a few more details that I probably would have edited and added in with this one. So the final version is probably going to have a combination of those, and I'm definitely going to not rewrite this for a third time, or wait, a fifth. How many times this is? 1, 2, 3, 4. So technically it would be 4th times, but I wrote the entire scene last time, and I do not like rewriting stuff, so I am not going to rewrite this again. I didn't even need the whole 10 minutes. But yeah, I definitely like the more time, because the more time gives me time to actually think about the scene and get into it and stuff like that. And 5 minutes just wasn't long enough to finish the scene earlier, but like 10 minutes was more than enough time to write this little scene and get it written out and everything else. So I still am interested to see how far I can get in 30 minutes. I really don't want to rewrite this again. I have the desire to pick up where I left off and keep writing for another 30 minutes. But technically the challenge was supposed to be how far I could get in 30 minutes. Or, to kind of see the difference in timing. So for the sake of finishing the challenge for you viewers, I will go ahead and do the 30-minute one. I just wanted you guys to know that I really don't want to do this scene again. And then I had trouble naming the guy. Okay, I didn't even need the rest of the 10 minutes to finish out that scene, so what am I supposed to do for 30 minutes? This is what happens when you do a writer's challenge because you hit writer's block. Another comment about the 10 minutes, I actually did notice that I was able to also, with more time, add in her voice. Before I was just like generically like typing things and wording it the first way that I would say it, but this like, why are you begging? And I just kind of left it at that with the one before, with the 5-minute one. But why are you begging, if I may be so bold, is the way that she words things. You look like you make a hard worker, that sort of thing. Like it added in her voice. And so that's, I guess, something that you have to have more time to kind of think about when you're doing character voices and stuff. So more time kind of allowed me for that. It's 4 a.m. and I'm losing my brain. 3, 2, 1, go. On that one scene that my brain is like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? We move on to a new scene. It's like, but we've been working on that scene for like a while now, and I'm just like, no, we have to try to write another scene and finish the story. So I rewrote the scene. I went from 30 minutes, it was like 22 minutes and some odd seconds. Just now when I finished that scene, and I feel like that's actually kind of more the version in my head. Doing it so many times and having so much time to be able to relax has actually like allowed me to just take my time with it and not rush through it. And doing it repeatedly actually helps me think more of the scene in like the right version I want of it. So I still have 21 minutes left to hopefully finish the story, which goes back to the rest of the prompt. So let's do this. I'm gonna stretch a little bit. It's hard sitting here writing for so long. Do some stretching exercises.
Oh yes, time for my stoutness exercise. Up, down, up.
Okay, I've got 3 minutes left. 30 minutes, I've actually finished the story. And I started from the beginning this time. 30 minutes was so much more reasonable to write a, how long is this? 1,486 word story. That is actually really good for 30 minutes of writing. So with these last 3 minutes, I would probably be going through and kind of reading it through and editing it a bit. So let's do that. And this time I took my time in the beginning, and when I wrote the last version, the 10-minute version, I kind of left out some dialogue by accident, and I didn't realize it till later. And so as I was writing it again, I remember to add that in there. You look like a hard worker. I forgot that line in the 10-minute one, so I added it back in there for this one. So another thing I noticed was in this version, I actually added in the cup description, like where it was located. Like interacting with things in your story's environment actually helps you add more to the story. And so that's why I think I like this version so much better, not only because I had more time, so it was written better, but the cup was sitting beside him on the street and he picks it up. And so the whole time he's talking with her, he's like nervous, so his hands are like clenching the cup. And so sometimes when she's being gentle with him, she kind of puts her hands over the cup. And then later it adds an interesting dynamic because she puts the diamond ring in the cup and it's like so touching and everything. So all right, so I think we're ready to read. I'm actually surprised because I really honestly didn't want to rewrite the scene again, but by doing so, I think I was able to finally come out with the final version of the story. The one, I'm going to keep all of these, but this is the one that's going to be like the official story, which I'm going to call The Diamond Ring, by the way. So let's read. Let's do the final read through, guys. The Diamond Ring. Birds chirped in the bright blue sky, and joy filled Clarice's heart. She hummed as she made her way across the cobblestone streets of the village. It wasn't often she was able to come and visit, but today was one of the rare instances when she could. After all, even the villagers needed to see their princess once in a while. The edge of Clarice's shoe caught on a jagged stone sticking out of the street. Her body lurched forward and she yelped. Just as she flailed and started to fall, strong arms caught her and kept her from toppling over. Are you all right, Your Majesty? A deep but kind voice asked. Clarice looked up but couldn't hold back a gasp. The man who had saved her had horrible burns etched on the entire right side of his face. It forced the right side of his lip down in a permanent snarl. Despite that, his eyes were so bright and green, open and kind. Yes, thank you, she stuttered out. The man snatched his hands away from her as if he had been shocked. He bent down and reached out for a cup sitting on the street beside where he stood. It was the first time she realized just how filthy his clothes were, coated in dirt and grime. She placed a hand on her chest to ease the ache. Why are you begging, if I may be so bold? The man avoided meeting her gaze as his fingers clenched around the tin cup. No one will hire me, Your Majesty. Clarice frowned and placed her hands on her hips. And why not? You look like you make a hard worker. The man swallowed deeply, and his grip tightened on the cup. They're frightened of me, Your Majesty, because of my face. Clarice's heart went out to him. Well, I'm not frightened of you. She placed her hands upon his around the tin cup, but there was nothing inside. With a smile, she slipped the diamond ring off her left index finger and placed it inside the cup. Your Majesty, it's too much. I could never accept such a gift. Clarice shook her head and once again clamped her hands around his. It is my gift to you. After all, you did save me from a rather nasty fall. How could I ever thank you? The man's bright green eyes glistened with tears. Clarice shook her head. None necessary, but please call me Clarice. And what is your name? Wren, Your Majesty. Clarice. Wren, well, I hope to be seeing you around. With that, Clarice gave him a wave and continued on her way. Clarice could not stop thinking about Wren. Questions flowed through her mind on a constant basis. How had he been burned? What had happened to him? Why were the people so frightened of him when he was clearly so kind and had such a good heart? People were shallow and harsh, she realized, though she had been aware of it for years. She wrung her hands together and fought off a yawn where she sat beside her father, the king. Thank you, Your Majesty. The villager inclined his head on a final bow before the guards escorted him out of the throne room. Clarice's father shot her a firm look. I know these bore you, Clarice, but you must pay attention. The needs of the people, the needs of the rich and well-off, you mean, she said, unable to stop her voice from snapping. Her father promptly ignored her and gestured for the doorman. Let in the next case. Two guards held a man and violently dragged him into the room. Clarice gasped. The man being held in between the guards was Wren. The guard on the right inclined his head. Your Majesty, we caught this man. He stole from your daughter when she visited the village yesterday. The guard held out a ring and handed it to her father. Clarice's chest tightened. Father! Silence, Clarice, he snapped. He gazed intently at the ring for a moment before glaring at Wren. He hung in between the two guards, and Clarice's heart sank to see his left eye had been blackened. What do you have to say for yourself, thief? Her father demanded. Stealing is a serious crime, especially from a royal. You're already a monster enough as it is. Now you'll lose your hand. The man stared at the floor Not the man. I'm supposed to be editing, but I have to fix that. Ren stared at the floor without response. Father, it was me. Clarice leapt from the throne. All eyes in the room shifted toward her, including Ren's. I saw that he was begging, and I gave it to him as a gift. Her father narrowed his eyes at her. You did what? Clarice flinched. He has nothing. No one in the village will hire him, and it's obvious he's starving. I could not simply walk away without helping him. He saved me from falling yesterday. His father... Her father? Sorry, I can't not edit these basic, mistakes. Her father shoved the ring against her chest, so Clarice fumbled to catch it before it fell to the ground. Giving such expensive gifts to peasants is beneath you, Clarice. I'm disappointed in you. Clarice gnawed on her lower lip and hung her head. It was the right thing to do, father, and you know it, she snapped in a low tone. Her father shot the man a glare. How dare you accept such a gift from your betters? You're nothing but a monster, you filth. Apologize. The guards released Ren's arms and tossed him down at Clarice and her father's feet. He stayed in a low bow and avoided both of their gazes. Forgive me, your majesties, I was out of my place. Anger flared through her, and she hurled her ring directly at her father. It bounced off the armor of his shoulder and landed on the floor with a twang. Clarice, her father demanded. Clarice ignored him and bent down in front of Ren. Gently she placed her fingers beneath his chin and forced his gaze up toward hers. You have nothing to be sorry for, she murmured. He is not a monster, father. You are. He's more human than you ever will be. She reached out and traced the burn scars on his face. Ren flinched but didn't pull away. Clarice! Her father's hands gripped her shoulder and jerked her away from Ren, but she yanked herself out of his tight hold. No, father, I cannot stand by and watch you treat your citizens this way. The poor matter just as much as the rich. Our friend has been wounded, but he isn't a monster, and he deserves to be treated with kindness just as much as you. Clarice, her father started. No, Clarice shook her head and reached up for the crown on her head. It's legal for any royal to denounce their claim to the throne, so I do it. I will not stand by this a moment longer. So long as you treat your people this way and choose not to help the needy, I will be your daughter no longer. Goodbye, father. With that, Clarice gently grabbed Ren's hands and helped him to his feet. Then she left the palace and the royal life once and for all. Perhaps losing his daughter would force her father to see the error of his ways, to see that even the poor people had meaning in life, and that he should have been helping them, not treating them like this. Even if he chose not to change, Clarice would be happy and content traveling and seeing the world, working for her wages and helping out those she could. As she and Ren exited the palace, he pulled her to a stop and met her gaze. Why would you leave the palace life, all the things that you have? Why would you have risked it all just to help me? The rest of the world hates me and is frightened of me. Why aren't you? Clarice gripped his hands in her own. Because you are still a man, Ren. Being burned does not make you a monster or frightening. You deserve to be helped just as much as anyone else, and I cannot bear to stay there a moment longer. You have nothing now. No money, no way to travel. What will you do? Ren asked. His eyes held compassion and concern. Clarice's lips pulled up into a smile. We can go anywhere we want to go. Ren frowned at her. Clarice, you may be used to the palace life, but it takes money to travel, more than we could beg for in a year. Ren, we can go anywhere, see anything. We can help out the poor and do what we can for the poor people in your village. Clarice opened up her hand and held out the diamond ring. So obviously, tiny plot hole. I have to figure out how she gets back a hold of it after she hurls it at her father. But these are things that would be naturally just edited. So, I hope that these writing challenges have been this writing challenge has been fun for you, writing in 30 seconds and then 2 minutes, 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't do the hour, but it's 4 a.m. and I'm really tired, so I don't think I could have written for an hour, and I finished it in 30 minutes anyway. So I will be back on the channel with more writing challenges, so I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have, please like this video and be sure to subscribe for more writing and videos every Monday.